All right, thanks, Mike. Well, welcome everyone again. My name is Lester Ali Tagtag, and we will be looking at the Lender's Office web-based origination system. That's what we're looking at right now, the login page. Now, Lender's Office is a 100% web-based loan origination system. What that means is that you'll be able to access your loan files from any computer with an internet connection and an Internet Explorer web browser. And so with that, you'll be able to work on your files or look at the status updates from your office or from home or even while traveling. You don't have to have any piece of software installed on your computer. It's just like, going to Google, signing into your webmail, it's going online and logging into this website. Now, when your credentials are provided to you, you'll want to go to www.lendersoffice.com, and that will allow that person to go in here, access the login page where you can enter your credentials. Before we jump into the system, though, one thing I do recommend is for us to go ahead and add Lender's Office to your trusted sites zone. Right below the login fields, there's a little yellow box where you can click on these instructions. It will tell you how you can add Lender's Office, and the reason you want to do that is it will allow your web browser security settings to play nicely with Lender's Office, so you're not going to experience any security-related issues. Okay, so first thing off, go ahead and do that. You do it once, you don't need to do it again. Okay, so once you do enter your credentials, you'll be taken to the pipeline screen. It will look something similar to this. Essentially, this pipeline screen here allows you to see the files that you are assigned to. Okay. Now, what you have by default is what we call the simple pipeline, and this pipeline screen can actually be customized or changed. Now, what that means is you can add or remove different pieces of information onto this pipeline. Okay. You might want to, as processors, you'll want to see different things than a loan officer would, than an underwriter would, than a lock desk would, for example. And so you want to help identify what those things are that's important for you to see here. That way, you don't have to go and dig into the loan file itself to find that information. Okay, so it's just streamlining your pipeline or your data gathering process by being able to see it directly on your pipeline screen. In addition to being able to add and remove pieces of information or columns here on the pipeline, you'll also be able to go ahead and filter in and filter out different loan files on your pipeline. For example, let's say the loan gets placed into the processing status. Now it's in your pipeline. When you place it into pre-approved or pass it over to underwriting, then it gets out of your pipeline. That's one thing that you may want to consider or have your administrator set up for you. Now, the reason is it helps focus your pipeline to be what you're responsible for, so that at any given moment when you log in, you can see what you need to work on without having to worry about seeing all the other files that ever were assigned to you. Okay, and so the main idea there is that it helps manage your pipeline. You can even sort it according to certain dates, whatever's more important to be at the top, things like that. So when those pipelines are created, you'll be able to switch over by clicking this change link here. Okay. Right now, the pipelines for processing are not in place at this point, I believe. We have one for the underwriter, but not yet for the processors. So get that information of what you want to see over to the administrators, and they will be able to help make that pipeline for you. That way, you can have a more streamlined and focused pipeline. All right, so that's the pipeline screen. Now, what we want to look at also is on the upper left corner here. By the time these files get to you, they've already been created. The loan officers had already worked on them. They should have already, taken the 1003. They should have run pricing at least already, made some type of decision, and then, it goes off to you to start gathering those documents, the conditions and things like that. Maybe even do the disclosures if the loan officers hadn't done so yet. Okay, so what we're going to focus on today is that part, being able to review the 1003 information, update the information on the file, take a look at verification, some of the forms and disclosures, the GFE and the TIL, things like that, and we'll see how we can also move this forward over to the setup folks, and then just take a look at how you can review the conditions on the file and even see the updates for those conditions as they happen, and just take a deeper look into that. So with that said, very briefly here along the upper left corner, this won't be too relevant for you, but I just want to mention it just in case. You have this Quick Pricer tool, which allows you to run pricing and eligibility on a very basic level. Basically, you only have a simple set of information that you're entering. Okay, and once again, this is most likely going to be done by the loan officers, but just so that you're familiar with, hey, what the heck is that Quick Pricer tool? This Quick Pricer tool allows you to enter that limited set of information to run basic eligibility and pricing on any given scenario. Okay, so usually designed for earlier stages with the borrower to determine whether or not they are a good prospect or not. Okay, so enough about that. We won't get in too much. Once again, that's going to be mostly done by the loan officers. We can also see if we wanted to create a loan, we also have that option here, Create Loan Link, which allows us to choose from a set of templates, and this is what your originators are doing to get these files into the system and then eventually to you. So they'll choose their desired template here, and then they'll go ahead and create a file at that point. What's really neat is that the administrators had already set up the default information in these templates to save you guys time, and effort, data entry stuff that is standardized, so you don't have to do that on every single loan file. Okay. Now, if you do find something that you're like, well, you know what, I wish I didn't have to do this. It's always there. It's always the same. If we could only have that there automatically, that would be great. That would be a great question or a request to make to your administrators. They could always update your templates to help do that for you. Okay. Another option here, in case you are involved in this, importing loans. This allows you to import Calyx Point or Fannie Mae files into the system. So basically, you choose which format you're importing. You select the folder that this is, where those files are located, and then just working our way down here, we'll want to select a template. Just like creating a loan, we'll want to select a template that we can choose from that will default that information over. And then here, these role areas here are basically who is going to be assigned to this file. Now, if you're importing this on behalf of a loan officer, very, very important thing you want to do is make sure that the loan officer here is assigned. So you want to click on Assign and click on the loan officer's name. That way, their information can appear as originator on the 1003 and other various forms and disclosures. Okay. As a processor, your name will appear here automatically. Okay, and so you don't have to assign a processor. And what's really neat is that, for the most part, that's all you really need to worry about, because your administrators would have automatically set up a different manager or, if appropriate, an account executive to be assigned to the file as well, based on the loan officer settings. That's why it says use LO settings there. Okay. So once any of that information has been made, if you were to import a file, you select the file or files you want to import and click on the Start Import button. Okay, and that will import those files and bring them directly into your pipeline screen, which if we refresh our screen, we'll be able to see anything that we did import here. So with that said, if we wanted to open up a file on our pipeline, we can click on the loan number here. I'm going to go ahead and use the training processors file. I just prepared one for us today, and I'll click on the edit link, and that will go ahead and bring up the loan file in a brand new window. Now, aside from your pipeline, you can also run a search for your loan files. Along the right side of the screen here, you can run a search by the loan number, the borrower's name, social security number, or even the property address. Okay? And so from here, you can enter that information, click on Go, and that will bring you over to that. So, for example, I'm going to say I'm going to search for a last name that starts with G-A-R. I'm not sure how to spell the whole thing. I just know it starts with G-A-R. I'll put a G-A-R and then an asterisk. Notice it says here, tack on an asterisk for partial matching. That means anything that starts with G-A-R will show up. So when I click on Go, that will go ahead and show me any loans where the borrower's last name starts with G-A-R. In this case, it's that processor's file that I was working on earlier. Some other things I want to show you here on this search screen is, aside from those things we talked about, searching by a loan number, borrower's information, property address, you can also search for loans according to a particular status here. Okay, so you can say, you know what, I know it's in a processing status, so I know it's in an underwriting status or something. Go ahead and search by status, status dates, within the past 90 days, 7 days, these different time periods. And then also, if you have a particular loan type, oh, I know it's an FHA loan, it's currently in processing, I can put FHA, it was in processing, at least 7 days ago, something like that. You can go ahead and do so. And then on the right side of the screen, top right, you have the ability to search for loans that are assigned to a particular person. So once again, oh, you know what, I know there's a loan that was in processing within this past week. It's an FHA, and I know the loan officer is actually, this person. So you can click on this pick user link and say, I want to look for loans that are assigned to this particular loan officer or this particular underwriter, and that will help you narrow down your search results. Okay, and then same thing, click on the edit link, and that will go ahead and bring up the loan file in a new window. Back to the pipeline here. I'm going to go ahead and just drag over my pipeline or my loan file window so that we can take a look at the file. Okay, and once again, if you do have any questions, you feel free to ask them on the bottom of the screen. Who will be our administrator? That's one question that was asked. For the most part, you can contact Michael Wilson or Adam Birch. They should be able to help you find out or take care of that request for you. Or Michael or Adam, if you have anyone else that you want them to use as a contact person for administrative functions, please advise.
Yeah, Lester, it's going to be Brett Fargo, myself, Adam, Stephen Martin, and Mike Wilson. You can pile most of it on me if you want, actually, but the other guys are able to help and willing.
Okay, excellent. So there you go, Adam, Michael, Steve Martin, and then also Brett Vargo. Thanks for that question. And now we're taking a look at the loan file itself. Okay, so for your originators, the main thing that they'll be doing is taking the 1003 and then running pricing on it, probably ordering credit as well. And so what we want to do is review how we can take a look at what that 1003 information is. So here, one of the ways you can fill out the 1003 or review the 1003 information is going through these three folders, loan info, subject property, and borrower info. And from here, we'll be able to see this on more category type of view. Okay, so this loan info, which is the screen we're on right now, is basically the basic loan scenario details, right? This is a purchase loan, primary residence, conventional. This is our purchase price and down payment information, etc. Note rates, term and due, etc. Okay. Now, some things I do want to point out because they're going to be common as you're working in lender's office are these grayed out fields. Notice for loan amount, it is grayed out. That means you are unable to type in anything. Like I'm clicking here, I'm hitting my keyboard, I can't change this at all. And that means it's coming from, or that value, 300,000, is coming from somewhere else in the loan file. It's being calculated. And so well, I know this is actually being calculated by our, our purchase price, appraised value, and the down payment information. If I was to say drop this down to 15% down payment, it recalculates the loan amount. Or if I can put in a specific dollar amount, let's say $57,250 as our down payment, it'll recalculate the loan amount and the percentages, etc. One thing, though, right next to this calculated field is this lock checkbox. And if I click on that, that allows me, right, it turned from gray to white and allows me to go ahead and type in my own value. So these lock checkboxes are going to be common. You can use them to type in your own value instead of using what the system calculates. So let's say here, it's actually going to be $297,623. Some very specific number, for example, and the system will go ahead and recalculate all the other information. So very important, those lock check boxes allow you to type in your own value instead of letting the system calculate it for you. And you'll see those throughout the system. Even on the bottom right corner here, you can see we have two lock check boxes right there. Okay, let's see here. Just continuing on our way down, we have the proposed PITI information. This mortgage P&I is being calculated by our loan amount and our note rate. Notice if I went ahead and changed my note rate, for example, it recalculates the P&I as appropriate. This next line down here is the other financing P&I. If I click, notice it's a grayed out field, it's at 0. If I click on the blue link right next to it, what it will do is take me to the area where that's being calculated, something like a web browser. So if I click on that link, one thing we want to notice is, I was making changes on the screen, and so it's asking me, do you want to save these changes? And the reason it asks is because as you're moving through, we'll be able to make sure that your data is saved on the server so that anyone else working on this file will also be able to see the most up-to-date information. As you're making changes and saving these in the file, people's pipelines will be updated. Other people, if they go in to review the loan, they'll be able to see the most up-to-date information. Let's say you're asking another processor or another underwriter to take a look at the file with you. Save the changes, they'll be able to see, the most up-to-date information. Even if they're in another room or another, location, it's about being able to make sure everyone is looking at the same stuff. Okay. So if I say yes, that will save my changes and move me over. If I say no, it'll discard my changes and move me over to the next screen. Or if I click on cancel, it's just, it's basically going to say, okay, well, you're just going to stay on the same screen. We won't discard your changes. Just in case you're like, oh, you know what, I totally forgot what I did here, or if these numbers are correct, I need to double check before I move over. You can click on cancel and just double check your information before saving. For now, I'm going to go ahead and click on cancel just to show you that if you wanted to save your changes, let's say you're making a lot of changes and you don't want it to be lost for whatever reason. You have the save button on the upper left corner right there. So anytime changes can be saved, you can click on save, and that'll go ahead and save them over on the file. Okay. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump over to that other financing P&I screen. Now this screen allows you to record any second financing information for this scenario, for those borrowers. We have, if this second financing or second lien is an existing lien, go ahead and turn this off. Okay, it's not additional financing, so turn that checkbox off. If it is a brand new second subordinated lien, go ahead and click on that checkbox, turn it on. All right, same thing with interest only. And then here, you just entered the more information on this particular file. Current balance, I'm just going to go ahead and say $50,000, for example, and let's say a note rate of 7% for, I don't know, 180 months. Okay, so we'll calculate those monthly payments, etc. But notice if I, along the upper right corner here, or upper portion, we have all the ratios on the file. Okay, so top, bottom ratio, those are your housing and DTI, LTV and CLTV. Right now, LTV and CLTV are the same. If I click on save here, well, notice because I've entered information on my other financing info and saved it, now my CLTV jumps to 92%. Okay, so I just want to let you know if you're ever like, whoa, how did that, how is that being calculated? Just go on here to the other financing info screen, and you'll be able to see how all of that comes into play. For now, I'm just going to clear this out and click on save again, and we can see the CLTV drops back to 79. Okay, so let's say, oh, you know what, I want to go back to and review the rest of the PITI information, but I forgot which link it is. You could always just click on the back button on the upper left corner. Just like web browser, you can move back and forward through the system. Okay, so with that, now we're back on the This Loan Info screen, where I can go ahead and look at the rest of my proposed PITI information. So the next line down here is hazard insurance. We have a drop-down, something, once again, this is also something that's going to be common throughout the system, where you can go ahead and pick, how this should be calculated. Let's say if it's the loan amount right now, I'm going to calculate this as 1% of the loan amount, and it will give me that, $248.02. Now, these are monthly values, monthly PITI information. The next line down here, real estate taxes, also a drop-down. Okay, so if I put a percentage, it'll base it on that particular value. But instead of a percentage, I can also just specify a dollar amount. In this case, I have $300. I can move this to $250 or whatever it's supposed to be, enter it here, and we'll use that value. Or you can use a combination. Let's say it's 1% plus $250. It'll go ahead and calculate it in that way as necessary. Okay, so just some common items that we'll see throughout the system. These little drop downs, especially as we look on the good faith estimate. percentages and even dollar amount values that you can enter. Okay, and we're almost done with this screen, and don't worry, we're not going to go into detail on all of our screens. I just wanted to point out some of these common things you'll be seeing. Mortgage insurance here, we see it is a grayed out value. We can lock this item if you want to specify our own value, but let's take a look at how this is being calculated first. So I'm going to click on mortgage insurance link. I'll say yes, I want to save my changes here, and we'll be able to take a look here. Along the top is the upfront MIP and funding fee information, and this allows you to see or enter if you had an FHA or VA loan, the upfront MIP or funding fee. So, you know, that 1.5 or whatever percentage it is now, enter that information, and if this is going to be financed, click on yes, and that way the system will be able to use this finance amount in the total loan amount calculation. Okay, so basically the base plus your finance MIP gives you the total loan amount. Since this is conventional for now, I'll just go ahead and just stick this at 0. The bottom portion here, monthly MI, is the one that contributes to that monthly MI or monthly PITI payment. So here I put in 1.750, giving us that 434.03 information. So, you know, that's basically where that's coming from, based on 1.75 of our loan amount. Okay, so if we went back to our previous screen, we'll see that's where that 434 comes from. HOA, I can just type this in, and then this other expense area actually pulls from some of the 2 particular lines on the GFE. I believe it's usually for winter or summer taxes if you're in one of those states where you have to pay that in advance, and include that on the 1003. Otherwise, you can always just lock this at 0 if you don't want that to come over from the GFE, assuming you save that information on the GFE at all. And now we have our PITI that it's going to go on our 1003. Now notice all this information we've entered just here, or we've navigated through a few screens inside of this loan info folder, but this also transfers over to the 1003 when you're printing and everything. So, you know, should be like any other LOS you've worked on. Enter it in one area, you don't have to reproduce or redo that information somewhere else. Okay, so with that said, the only other link really at this point is this Run Price My Loan link, and this area right here actually allows your originators to go ahead and run the pricing and automated underwriting engine on the file. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this in just a bit. Let's just, at least for now, complete the 1003 first. Okay, so subject property, enter our information for our subject property, project name and flood zone information that will export out to the closing docs. Rental income, if there is any rental income being earned on the subject property, you'll want to enter it here, you know, your gross rent, occupancy rate, etc. All right, let's see here, borrower info. So we're done with those 2 folders. I'll just minimize that for now. Borrower info allows you to enter the information for our borrowers. In this case, we have for Charles, if he had a spouse, I can, let's say I already filled out information for Charles, I can click on copy from borrower, and it'll go ahead and pull over some of that information. That should be common. What I'm going to do is go ahead and say this is Jane Garrett, and I give her a little SSN here, and yeah, that looks good for now. Okay, so I have my husband and wife. If you have any non-married co-borrowers, you want to enter them on separate applications. And so once again, by the time this gets to you, those other applications should already be on the file, but just so you're aware of how they're doing it, in case your originators have questions, we have a link here, Add and Swap Co-Borrower. If you click on that, it allows us to see all the different applications on the file. In this particular case, if I click on Add New Borrower, that will allow me to add a brand new application, and I can say this is actually for, say, Bob Borrower here, okay? And when I click on Save, you know, you can fill out the rest of the information for Bob. And as I take a look at the top here, I can switch between applications just by choosing the name. And so this allows you to work on the 1003 information for each of those applications. Okay. And I'll keep those guys around for a little bit. If I click on Add and Swap Co-Borrower link, this allows me to do some other things. If I wanted to remove Bob entirely from the file, I can click on the Delete This Borrower and Spouse link. I'll show you how that works in a bit. If I wanted to delete Jane entirely from the file, let's say I just click on Delete Spouse. that will remove Jane from the file. Notice that it prompted me, are you sure you want to do this? Because once you delete someone, you can't undo it. You can't restore them onto the file. Basically, they're gone. So you want to be very intentional if you're deleting these applications or deleting spouse information from the file. Okay. So for now, let's jump over to back to the borrower info screen here and take a look at just some other aspects. I'm just going to jump over to Charles's application. If I click on the borrower employment tab along the top, notice I can click on these tabs along the top or these links along the left side. They're the same thing. Whatever your mouse is closer to, go ahead and do that. So on this employment screen for the borrower, this is where I can go ahead and enter the primary employer's information along the top here. And if this person's self-employed, check that self-employed checkbox. Okay. Well, notice for each of these employment records, we have verification dates. You can track when the VOE was sent, reordered, received, and expected here. Okay. You also have the ability to add additional employment records. Once again, this should already be in place by the time this gets to you, but you can click on this Add button and type in, the other employer's name here, and enter the dates, when you were working there. Okay. Let's see, address information, etc. When you click on Save, that'll go ahead and add this employment record to this list, and it all gets listed out on the 1003. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that, if the borrower, this is the primary employer on the top, but if the borrower has, a second job that they're currently working at, you want to go ahead and select this current employment checkbox there. And that way, it'll include present, and that will make sure that when this exports out to Fannie Mae for the DO or DU run, that this will be linked in appropriately. Okay. If you wanted to move things up or move things down, you can go ahead and click on the Move Up, Move Down buttons, and that will allow you to rearrange these things as far as how they appear on the 1003. If you wanted to delete an employment record, you can go ahead and click on Delete, and it will remove that person or that record from the file. Okay. Last thing here, if you wanted to, work on the VOE for this particular file or for this employment record, I can click on these Edit VOE buttons for the primary, or down here, select the appropriate record and click on Edit VOE as well. What that does is will bring you over to the information that should populate over that on the VOE form itself. And we'll take a closer look at a lot of the other verifications that you can generate. But by default, your name as a processor, when you're assigned to these files, should already be here. In this particular loan file, I wasn't able to, I don't have the processor role, so that's why my name isn't on here. But this would already pull the information from your account as well as the company's information or the branch's name as appropriate. Okay. So with that said, let's jump back to the employment screen and just kind of move over the rest of these tabs. Co-borrower employment. Now, remember, each application has a borrower and a co-borrower. So what we're talking about here is Jane's employment information, if Jane was still the spouse on this particular file. Okay, so that's where we can enter information. Now, if we wanted to enter information, employment information for Bob, what we'll want to do is stay on the borrower employment screen, but move over to Bob's application. Okay, and so now we can enter information for Bob's employment records. Okay, so once again, borrower and co-borrower are talking about the particular application you're working on. Let's go over to monthly income. This allows us to go ahead and enter the income information for our borrowers. If I click on these blue links, it gives us a income calculator, monthly income calculator, which you can do something like, hey, you know what, I make $25 an hour, and I work 40 hours a week. The borrower tells you, and you'll go ahead and see that you make $43.33. Or if they say, you know what, I'm not sure what my monthly salary is, but I make $50,000 a year, I can go ahead and say year, and that will calculate my monthly income as $41.66 here. And so you can go ahead and work with these different pay periods, in case they're not sure what their monthly income is. Work with this to calculate that monthly value for you. When you click OK, that'll go ahead and populate that information onto the screen here. Same thing, like we were talking about for the employment records, if Bob had some income here, I can go ahead and say, you know what, he makes, let's go ahead and put in something for Bob. Let's say he makes $50,000 a year. Click on OK, populates 4166, and we can see that information here. So Charles's application, Bob's application, very separate areas. Along the bottom here, you have the rest of these fields: overtime, bonuses, commissions, dividends, and interest. Basically the same thing. Those are all monthly calculators. The one difference here is the net rent. In this case, you can see it is a grayed out field. That means it's coming from somewhere else. And if I was to click on this net rent blue link, it'll take me over to the REO screen, because essentially, if there is a net positive cash flow, it will show up here as a positive income. If there's a net negative cash flow, you'll see this as a $0 value. And we'll see how this is calculated in just about 3 more tabs. Along the bottom here, you also have the other income information, which allows you to enter in the different income information, different sources of income. If I pull up this list here, foster care, military pay, other income, trust income, etc. These are all the standard Fannie Mae income descriptions. You can go ahead and type in your own values, my own income source, whatever it is, and that's fine. Lender's office will save that, but if you were to export that out to DO or DU, what happens is this will just get lumped into what Fannie Mae calls other income, because it doesn't match one of their preset values or options. Okay. Let's move over here to liabilities. Let's go over liabilities. I'll say, no, I don't want to save the changes. Liabilities allows you to go ahead and see all the liabilities on this file. If some things are being marked as paid off, you can go ahead and, if I click on here, you can see that, actually we'll talk about modifying the liabilities in a bit. First off, liabilities, by the time this gets to you, they'll already be on the file. But for the most part, in order to populate this, just so you know how to do this, the originator will probably be ordering credit. So if I click on the order credit button, that allows me to go ahead and order a new credit report, where I can type in or select which bureaus I want to include. You'll also be able to select your desired credit reporting agency on top here. Okay, and so Kroll or CBC, those are your preferred ones. So all the way at the top, you don't have to search for them in the list. And then once again, order, select your bureaus, or reissue, enter your file number and instant view password, or upgrade. Some credit reporting agencies will allow you to upgrade a single bureau to a tri-merge report directly from within the lender's office. So if that is available, you'll see this is a white box. You can go ahead and type in your file number. Now, one thing about if you are going to be ordering credit, instead of the originator for whatever reason, CBC actually allows you, when you order credit, the ability to pay with a credit card. So if you were to enter that option and you try to request credit, that would give you a prompt to enter your credit card information to pay for it that way, or maybe the borrower's credit card information if appropriate. And then the last thing really is on the bottom here, you have your credentials. I chose CBC, so it's going to ask me for my CBC login and password. Once you click on the Submit Credit Request button, that will go ahead and submit that credit request out to the credit reporting agency and bring that information back in. You do have this Remember My Login option, which allows you to, or the system to remember your login information, but you'll still need to enter your password information each time. Okay, so just for the sake of example, let me go ahead and reissue a credit report here. I'm going to go ahead and bring this one in for Charles. Click on Submit Credit Request. And what it's doing, like I mentioned, it goes out to the credit reporting agency and it's pulling in all of that credit data, the viewable information, that PDF or whatever format you'll be able to view, or even allow you to go ahead and it'll also allow you to pull in the raw credit data provided by the CRA that our system on the back end will be able to read to determine eligibility when we run Price My Loan. One thing I want to show you here is that when you do order credit and there are some existing liabilities, it's going to detect that, and it's going to ask you, hey, there's some existing liabilities. Do you want to delete them and import the new one? So if you want to make sure you're on a blank slate, whatever's on the file, at least in the beginning, it's all coming from the credit report, or you can go ahead and update an existing and import new option, which allows you to, when you import this credit report, if it finds an existing match, it'll update it with the credit report information and then import any new guys that don't already exist. For now, I'm going to go ahead and choose the delete existing and import new. That way, we're starting on a blank slate, and it allows me to view the credit report here. In this case, I can see the information for Charles. I have his credit score information along the top, and then the trade lines as I scroll down along the bottom, late payment information, etc. Okay. Now, if you ever in the future you wanted to view credit, if you're in the services folder, you can always just click on the view credit link. You can view that over. Okay. Then we have here, if we jump back to the liabilities area, let's go ahead and take a look. All right. Back on the liabilities, everything that came over from that credit report is now on the file, and I can go ahead and start making any modifications if necessary. For example, if this particular liability was to be paid off, along the bottom here, I can mark it as will be paid off. Okay, and that will allow me to remove it from the ratio calculation. We'll notice that the debt should be included in ratios is no longer available. If I save this change here, we'll see a change in our summary area where the paid off column is saying yes, use in ratio no. Same thing or similar process. If it's going to be paid off, I mark it there. But if it still should be included in the ratios for whatever reason, you can always turn it back on. Click on save, and we can see now that it will say yes and yes. The only difference really here between the liabilities and the mortgage liability is that for mortgage liabilities, whether or not it's used in the ratio is determined by the REO properties here. That's why it says use in ratio, see REO, and I'll show you how you can link these mortgage liabilities to the REO properties. So we'll get there in just a bit, almost there. If we click on assets, we can take a look at the different asset records on the file. Very, very similar to what we were looking at on the liability screen and the employment screen earlier. If you want to add a new record, click on the Add button here. That will allow you to go ahead and add a new checking account, automobile, mutual fund, savings account, etc. Enter the company name information. I'm just going to go ahead and just populate this guy here. Company name, description, account holder, value, etc. Also, you have these verification dates for all these assets as well. And once we get to it, I'll show you where you can find all the verifications in one easy-to-access place. Okay. REO. Here, we have all the REO properties on this particular file. If I wanted to add a brand new file, I can click on the Add button. I can say something like this is a 999 REO Way. Okay, and if I put in the zip code, you'll notice this throughout the system. So type in or fill out this city and state information. I'll say this is a single-family residence here. Okay, rental property, and let's say a vacancy of 25, so I'll put 75% occupancy rate. One thing we want to notice is I'm leaving all these values as blank here. The reason is I want to link this over with my mortgage liability. So what I'm going to do is go to the liability screen. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and choose my mortgage liability here. And on the bottom of the screen, there's an area here where you can select the property address. So it's telling you to select a match REO. So I will go ahead and choose, let's say, that 999 REO Way property. Okay, and then you can see there's a balance and payment information already on this liability that came from the credit report. Now what I want to do is pass that over to the REO property. So if I click on Add Balance and Payment Info to REO, as this button so explicitly says, it will go ahead and add balance and payment info to the REO property. Okay. So once I did that, I clicked it once only because if I click it multiple times, this will carry over a bunch of times, and you'll have like duplicate or double the amount. So if I go now to my REO screen, we'll be able to see that the 999 REO Way property now has the balance and payment information on as part of the file, and you can go ahead and complete the rest. Gross rent, insurance information, etc. We'll calculate the cash flow automatically based on the occupancy rate, the gross rent, and then subtracting the mortgage payment and insurances from that information. However, sometimes you need to fill this out according to the Schedule E or tax transcripts. You also have this lock checkbox. There it goes again, the lock checkbox, where you can go ahead and instead of using that calculated value, type in your own amount. if the tax transcript said, they actually made $412 on this particular property, go ahead and put in 412. All right. So if you have, multiple mortgage liabilities related to a single property, all you have to do is make sure you select the appropriate REO property, and that will go ahead and carry over. Okay, so multiple liabilities can be linked to a single REO in case there's like some second financing or something like that. Okay, let's see here. Just taking a look here, quick look. No other questions yet so far, so we'll go ahead and continue moving on to our final screen here, which is the housing expense. And housing expense, before we go into housing expense, I wanted to point out again our cash flow. It had changed now to a positive cash flow, net cash flow of $1,009. And so if we look at our monthly income, it's automatically going to populate because we're carrying it over from the REO. Okay, so as your cash flow changes on the REO screen, it will change your monthly income information. Now, with housing expense, this is the last screen or last link here in our borrower info folder. Basically, we enter the current residence, or we'll be reviewing the current payments on the borrower's current residence. If they're renting or paying a mortgage, enter that information here. Okay, and once again, all of this populates over to the 1003. Now, we've completed those 3 folders I was talking about, the loan info, subject property, and borrower info folder. And on a general level, that completes a bulk of the 1003 information. And so if you're trying to find specific areas, just the employment, just the liabilities, just the assets, you can go through these 3 folders to find that information and as you're doing your review. However, there's also a second way to complete the 1003. If we open up the forms folder, there is a loan 1003 folder. If I click on page 1, it's an electronic version of the 1003 application that basically allows us to go ahead and modify or review this just like it appears on a paper application. So the layout is very, very similar. As we scroll down, we'll be able to complete the information as appropriate. Okay, we'll move over to page 2. We can click on these links along the left, page 2, page 3, and this gives us our details of transactions, which actually come from our GSE. If we scroll down, our declarations for this file, for this particular applicant, and then we have our government monitoring purpose information, and then finally the originator's information. So here, this file actually has a loan officer assigned, so it's automatically taking that information from the official contact record here. Okay, so that's pretty neat. That way, it comes from the user's account. You don't have to worry about typing this in all the time. It's just coming from the official contact, which was in place when the originator had created this file. Okay, so that's the electronic version of the 1003. Page 4 is really just a continuation page if you need to add some additional information onto the 1003. All right, so with that said, that is the 1003 information. Let's take a look at some of the verifications just because, we want to take a look at where you can find all of that. So inside of the forms folder, we click on the verifications folder as well, and that gives us access to the VOD, the VOE, and all of that. So because we've already completed 1003, we have all these records on the file. We can go ahead and pull up any of these VOD and VOE information. Okay, so if I click on Edit, for example, for this Wells Fargo verification and deposit, it allows me to, it has the information for that file from the asset. And then the information here should be coming from the official processor record on the file. And in fact, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you where that comes from. So, I've been talking about this official contact list that is going to be helpful to populate the different forms and disclosures on the file. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Inside of the status folder, I'll click on the agents link. Okay. Now, at the bottom of the screen here, we have the official contact list for this loan. So if I wanted to add a processor, I can assign a processor on the top here, okay? And let's say if it was going to go to, well, I don't want to assign it to someone and they don't want to see it. Hey, Michael, I'm just going to assign this to you real quick if that's okay. I can click on this copy user info to official contact list and appropriate forms button. And what that will do is when I assign Michael, it'll go ahead and populate his information to the official contact list here, okay? And so that's what the originators would be doing when they assign this over to you. But you'll see that it populates his information here. And now if I was to go ahead and move over to my verifications, okay, click on edit, you can see that Michael's information here showing up right now. Okay. Now, what's really neat is that you can take these applications or these verifications, and if you went ahead and clicked on this preview and print button, okay, this will go ahead and allow you to preview this particular verification form in a PDF file. Let me go ahead and drag that over. Okay, so the information that was on the file is now showing up here. It's been filled out for us. You can go ahead and print or email this out or whatever you need to do. You can save it as a PDF file onto your computer. Okay, and since we're talking about verifications, let's take a look at some of the other verifications on the file just so we can see what it looks like. And then I'll show you how you can print or have this out available in a batch format. So here, let's go to the VOE. Okay, VOE allows you to see the employment records that we have on this particular file. If I had some for Bob borrower's application, it would show up there as well. So here, I can go ahead and enter my ordered, reordered, received, and expected dates. Okay, if I preview, I can preview the specific ones if I wanted to, or click on edit to modify them. Notice because we have that official processor contact, Michael's information now shows up everywhere here. Same thing for verification of mortgage or rent, verification of land, of loan, and then verification of land contract. If that information was on the file, you'll be able to see that information. You'll have records here to pull from. Now, what if you want to pull up these verifications in batch, like you want to print them out all together or combine them and send them out, whatever you need to do. If you click on this print button along the top, okay, that brings us to the print list. And because I was on the VOM, VOR screen, it kind of just allowed me to automatically highlight the VOM and VOR on this particular file. So as we can see here, it will, on the print screen, there's a section specifically for the verifications here. And so for all the verification forms on the file, it allows you, it lists it out here. And if I wanted to view them all, I can go ahead and select these checkboxes for all of them, for example. Okay. And I can do a few things. If I wanted to preview these forms, I can click on the preview selected forms and to print or email. Basically, it's saying, hey, do you want to open this up in a PDF file, or do you want to save it to a computer as a PDF? Okay, so those two options. If I wanted to send it directly to the printer, okay, I can click on this Print Selected Forms button, and that will allow me to go ahead and send this to the printer without having to preview it in Adobe first. Okay. If you were to email this information or a set of documents or all of them, you can also apply a password here. If I click on this require this password to open your PDF option. Okay, and this is just another layer of security encryption password where I can go ahead and say whatever my password is I want, password. Don't use that one, okay, just for demo purposes. Don't use password, but go ahead and put in password. And when you save this particular file, it will ask the recipient or whoever's trying to open that document for that password you specified. So if you are emailing documents, for security reasons, just don't give the password in the same email as the document itself. Otherwise, if someone had, got that email for however malicious way they want, they have all the information they need. So, send it in a separate email, or even better, call them and give it to them over the phone if that's possible, or face-to-face. But anyways, you do have the ability to apply a password onto these documents if you're saving them onto your computer for emailing or, storing later on. Okay? And we'll take a look at some of the print areas later on again. So let's jump back over to the verification forms. We took a look. They're all available here. And so any questions, once again, please feel free to type them out in the questions box. One thing we want to move forward with next is going ahead and taking a look at the GFE. Okay, so this GFE allows you to see all the fees on this file that you're disclosing to the borrowers. Now, you're not generating your disclosures in Lender's Office necessarily. You're going to be doing that from within DocMagic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But on this GFE, you have the information, first payment date if that's known, estimated closing date, that will help determine the consummation date on this file. If this was an ARM product, this information will already be filled out when the originator has run through the price Melon engine. Let's take a look at the fees. That's usually the place everyone wants to look at. So if I scroll down here to the fees area, okay, this allows us to enter the information that would get exported to DocMagic, which would be printed on the GFE. And so, like we saw before, we have percentage or dollar fields here that will help determine or calculate the amount column right here on the right side. And so, you know, sometimes you can change the drop down, but entering percentages or dollar amounts is, for the most part, the way to go. You have the amount columns, which are the fees that are being disclosed. You have some custom guides here, which basically will have been defaulted by the administrator, so you don't have to worry about filling out these custom fields every single time. It should already be on the templates. So your administrators have done a lot of things for you in terms of setting up these templates and minimize the amount of time you have to work on these files. Okay, so another thing I want to take a note of as we're moving over to the right side, we have this page 2 column where we have these different designations, A1, A2, B3. What does that mean? Well, on page 2 of the GFE, and those are all your fees are showing up, there are these different boxes or blocks. You know, block 1, block 2. Those would be your origination charges or credit to the borrower. And then B3 through I think B11, those are all settlement charges. And so each of these line items here on the GFE correspond to one of those origination or settlement charge boxes. And that's what A1 and A2, B3 mean. Okay. Now, for some of these custom fields, you have the option to choose whether or not it's an origination charge or a settlement charge. Okay. And so for the most part, your administrators have already set up the custom one, so you don't have to worry about that. Moving over to the right, you have who it's being paid by, the borrower, the seller, the lender, or the broker. Okay. You have these A checkboxes, which indicate that this is an APR fee. This should already be set up in your template, so you shouldn't have to touch this at all. They've already determined which ones are APR fees and not, so for the most part, you shouldn't have to modify that at all. The F checkbox here is for FHA closing costs, basically allowing that to be listed as an FHA closing cost. Paid outside of closing, paid, and then the B checkbox is if it's being paid to the broker. Okay. You also have this paid to column here, which allows you to type in, who this fee is being paid to, which would also be exported out to the GFE. Okay. So scrolling down further, you can see it's a very, very similar process. You're entering either a number of months or some percentage or some dollar value to help calculate whatever these fees are. One thing I want to show you here as we scroll to the bottom are the GFE summary areas here. So basically, because instead of having to preview this on the actual form, you can actually go down here and see what numbers would populate to each of those different boxes. So it gives you an idea without having to pull up the form itself. Then just lastly, you have the trade-off tables and the shopping cart information where you can go ahead and enter, those different scenario information. Okay. Truth in lending here, we'll just jump over to the till. This allows you to, I'm going to go ahead and say this is the loan officer. So once again, contact information along the top. I'm going to use the populate a firm official contact option, and I'm going to choose the loan officer's information. Okay, so that'll populate his information there. If he had an email or fax number, actually it's the company's information. So enter that there. There's a prepared date for this till. You can enter that there as well. As we scroll down, we have the ARM. Once again, if you had submitted for an ARM program, this would already be completed automatically. We have the amortization schedule on the right side. If you wanted to view the full schedule with all payments listed out on each line item, you can click on the amortization schedule button here. This was an interest-only loan. Enter how many months it is interest-only. Scrolling down, we have the mortgage insurance area where you can indicate, the mortgage insurance and how long, those payments are on the file. Is it canceling at 78%? Does it have to meet 60 a month or 60 payments before the MI gets canceled? Whatever those different terms are, you can enter that here, and that will help affect the amortization schedule. And then scrolling down the bottom here, this should already be filled out by your administrators in the templates, but this is just the insurance, security, filing fee information that's also available on the till. Okay, so with that said, yeah, so that's the till information. Let's take a look at, if you wanted to just, look at what it looks like before generating the disclosures inside of DocMagic. We can go to the print screen, okay? And on the print screen, we can take a look at the different forms that are available to us. If you wanted to see the GFE or till, you can click on Preview. We're not disclosing from Lender's Office. We have to do that from DocMagic. But I'm just saying you can preview them here as well. Since we're on the print screen, let's take a look at some of the custom PDF forms that your administrators had added. So these are some things specific that aren't standard forms. You can bring up your HVCC appraisal, doc fee sheet, and some of this might be more for the originators, but at least you have access to see where this information is coming from. Okay, so like we mentioned before, you can click on the preview link to open up that one particular form, or select multiple ones and click on this button here, or print it directly by clicking the Print Selected Forms button. All right. Since we're talking about printing, one thing I do want to show you is that you will need to install something onto your computer. It's like a printer driver in order to send this to the printer without having to preview it in Adobe first. So if we click on the main window link along the upper right corner, just one setup item I do want to show you. Along the left side, there's a Your Settings section. And if I click on the Download link, okay, there is a Browser XT and an ePrint V4 items that you can install onto your computer. So Browser XT would be what you would need in order to import or export Calyx point files, if you were doing that. And then ePrint allows you to print forms off that printer driver we were talking about. Okay, so if we went back to the actual loan file, take a look at some other information. If we are ready to go ahead and disclose or send those disclosures into to the borrowers, you'll want to go ahead to the Services folder, click on DocMagic, and this will allow you to export this file to DocMagic. So here, you'll click on Export to DocMagic, and it'll give you access to enter your DocMagic customer ID, username, and password information in order to go ahead and launch the DocMagic applet. Okay, so this is pretty neat. It opens up DocMagic in a brand new window where you'll go ahead and be able to work on that. Okay, and you'll be having a separate DocMagic training if you haven't already done so, and that will be provided for you separately, but at least you know where this is available in Lender's Office. Now, two things I want to show you about the DocMagic integration. You have two buttons. One is Export to DocMagic, okay, and that will export the information from Lender's Office and overwrite if there's an existing information in DocMagic, or just move it over. Or you have Launch DocMagic. This button here, it's grayed out right now because we haven't already exported it first, but this option here allows you to open up DocMagic without having to export information. So if you just want to pull up whatever's already in DocMagic without overwriting any information, click on this button right here. Okay. So with that said, we went over, a bunch of the forms, the 1003, the GFE, the verifications, took a look at how we can export out the disclosures. Let's see here. Gathering the conditions is something that you'll be involved in, and what you could do, I'm not sure if this is going to be available to you right away, but at least as a preview, if anything, we can click on the Upload Documents link here. Okay, and this will allow you to select from a list of documents for those conditions that you're going to be gathering, and go ahead and choose if you're uploading an appraisal, some conditions, or the loan file itself. Okay, and so if I am uploading these guys, you'll be going ahead and click on Browse, this Browse button, and that will allow you to browse for that appraisal file on your computer. Okay?
Hey, Lester?
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that this is actually, this portion will kind of replace what they're doing in LoanScore now, where they upload the initial PDFs when they submit a file. Even though we're not doing the full-blown eDoc system yet, this will be available, and you guys will use this to, upload the loan, the appraisal, just like you would in LoanScore when you initially set up the file.
And the cool thing about this is the file and that PDF will always be with this loan. It won't disappear, so anything you upload into the loan file in eDocs is always going to reside in there. So you upload it, we can print it. If we have to reference back to it, we can print it. If you upload conditions, we can print them. They'll always be in there. Eventually, this will be the whole integration of the file. There will be no more paper file. You'll upload the file into separate different sections. Here's my income. Here's my appraisal. Here's my prelim. It'll all be in the file, and it'll be an electronic record of everything that's in there. And we'll underwrite and we'll deliver our loan from an electronic inside of lender's office, and that'll always be accurate and updated when we're paperless.
Cool. Also, as an alternative to uploading these PDFs, you can also fax the documents in as well. You know, basically choose, if I'm faxing an appraisal, for example, I just click on the download link here, and that allows me to go ahead and open this up. It's a cover sheet that has a barcode on it that our system would be able to read in order to determine, you know, what loan file this belongs to, as well as what kind of document it is. And so this is pretty neat. It hasn't been set up yet for iServe, the company, yet, but that is something that will also be available. Instead of just the PDF upload, there's also the fax information as well. Okay. So with that said, there are some questions here. Do you have to use DocMagic when printing a loan application, or can you just print the loan application from lender's office?
We're going to use the loan application from lender's office. The initial disclosures will come from DocMagic, but the app will come from lenders.
Okay. So if we go here to the print screen, if for whatever reason you need a blank application, let's say you don't want any borrower's information to show up, go ahead and choose the 1003, you know, the legal or the letter size, whatever it is, and you'll want to choose the blank forms option here. Okay, and that will make sure that any information that's on this file, if there was any, won't be included. Okay, so thanks for that question, Amanda. The max file size for upload, there's not a particular maximum for one particular document. However, you can upload, you can see here if I choose appraisal and then I have some conditions, and then you can upload multiple things at one time. So up to 6 PDFs at one time, the max upload would be 50 megabytes in total. So if you had, you know, a couple of documents and the total of all those documents was 70 megabytes, you know, just do it in 2 batches where you upload maybe 4 of those documents first and then 3 of those documents later on. Okay. So good questions. Thanks for those questions here. Let's see. Some other things that you guys will be involved in is running DO or DU on the file. So if you were to do that, you can click on the Submit to DO and DU link here. And that will allow you to enter your credentials. Along the bottom, we can click on the specific button if we're submitting to Desktop Originator or Desktop Underwriter. We just click on those buttons, and then we'll be able to go ahead and say, yes, this is my DO user ID and password. And that will open up a brand new file or a brand new window that takes you directly to DO. And we export all the information from lender's office over to DO. Okay? And if you want to see a demo or a tutorial about that whole process, we won't be able to do it right now. But in our help link on the upper right corner here, if I click on help, there's a tutorials area where there is a little video here, the direct DO and DU integration video. So click on one of those links and you'll be able to watch that video. Goes through the whole process, exporting from lender's office to DO, generating your findings in DO, and then importing it back into lender's office. You know, your 1003, your credit report, and the DO findings themselves. Okay. All right. So running DO. Okay. So another thing that's going to be important, especially as all of the staff is working in one system, is being able to update and indicate changes to the loan file in a way that anyone else looking at the file will be able to see what's going on without having to contact you. Okay? So one of the ways that you'll be able to do that is according to the loan status. If we open up the status folder here, we can click on the general link, okay, and that will allow us to see the different statuses on this particular file. Now here, we're able to see if I wanted, it's currently in the registered status. If I wanted to move this over to processing, for example, we can go ahead and click on the change status button, okay, and of course this is how the originators would pass this over to you. They place it into the processing status, okay, and that would populate you know, that today's date onto that particular field if it's already empty. Now, let's say you have done everything and you're ready to pass this on to setup. All you need to do is click on the change status button and place it into the pre-approved status. And what that will do is notify or trigger a pipeline report for the loan setup person, and they'll be able to go ahead and stack and print all the documents and get that ready for the underwriting coordinator. Okay, so putting it into the pre-approved status is what you'll need to do in order to get it triggered for loan setup. Okay. Something else I do want to point out here is that when you have disclosed or ordered those disclosures and sent those out in DocMagic, in order to indicate that within the LOS, there is an area we want you to fill out here. As we scroll down towards the bottom, there is this till disclosure / GFE order date right here. And so if you enter information right there, that's going to be the indication that disclosures have been sent. So, you know, when you do run DocMagic, you send out those e-disclosures to the borrower. You want to go back here into the system and indicate when you sent those out. Okay, so everyone will know that, yes, the disclosures were sent out and it was sent out on this date. Okay, there is a question from Janine. Would it be better for us to print from this program versus Point? Michael or Adam, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, the question was, what's the preference, this or Point? We're no longer going to use Point. Once we roll this out, Point will be bye-bye. And we'll all be much happier once we get in the groove. Of course, there'll be a learning curve, but the system's far superior to the Calyx / Loan Score system we were using before.
Yeah, Point will still be available in your offices, but this will be our LOS of record. We no longer have to use the double, triple input we're using now into systems. The data integrity will all be there. Secondary needs to know initially up front what's getting processed so we can improve our pricing. So the whole goal is to get on one system for application to investor delivery, and our lives improve dramatically.
Okay, it's a great question. So essentially this will be replacing what you're using now in Point. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, Michael, did you want to go ahead and show them the Price My Loan engine, or we can just take a look at conditions if they don't need to look at the PML side itself?
You can go real quick to just show them how the pricing gets generated and everything, just a search.
Sure. Let's go ahead and so from an originator perspective, after they've probably ordered the credit and taken the app, they can run the Price My Loan engine, which is that pricing and automated underwriting engine embedded directly in the LOS. It's all one system, one database of record, like Michael was mentioning. So it's really neat. You don't have to log into multiple areas, and you don't have to re-enter data because it's just using the exact same data that we have on the file. So to run Price My Loan, we'll open up the Loan Info folder here and click on the Run Price My Loan link. And this allows us to go ahead and this first step will be the loan officer's information, which should already be on the file. If I click on the next button here, it allows us to go to the credit step. Okay, and this credit step, if we hadn't already ordered credit, or if we had jumped in here before completing 1003 and ordering credit, this would be more relevant. But for now, I do want to show you that if you do have access to manually enter credit report information, okay, that means that we'd be able to enter the credit scores, just type them out to get a more accurate result than the Quick Pricer, for example. But ultimately you want to have a credit report on the file. Now the reason you'd want to use manually enter is just to play around, see what pricing's at, what you're qualifying for, things like that. But ultimately when you want to register and submit this for a lock request to the lock desk, you will need to have a credit report on file. Okay. Now, one thing it's telling me, hey, there's a Bob borrower on this file, and he doesn't have a credit report. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to him, and I'm going to go ahead and type out some credit report information for him. I'm just going to give him 700s here. And I think we should be able to move on. All right, excellent. Cool. So let's click on the next button here. And I can see my applicant information. If I had jumped in here before completing 1003, this would be where I can do so. But I'll click on the next button again. This is a bulk of that 1003 information that we'll need to fill out. Anything that has a red circle next to it, let's say this was blank, will be required in order to move forward. So here I can go ahead and say 2 months instead. All right, and because we've completed 1003, a lot of this is already there for us. So a lot of our work is already done. Okay. Now, something I do want to spend a little time on to describe is this AUS option section. This allows you to choose, right? If you hadn't already run DO or DU on this file, this allows you to manually select, that response that came over to assume this for the eligibility piece. If you had already run DO, then whatever you imported over, that's what's going to be here. Okay. Now, this AUS processing type and the checkboxes along the bottom, once again, they are just allowing us to indicate what we want to see in our pricing results. In this case, it's my conventional FHA products, 15 and 30-year fixed products. Okay. So if I click on the Get Results button here, it's going to allow me to run all the information that we have on this file. You know, some of that 1003, the credit report information, the GSE information if we had run DO, and it's going to use that to determine eligibility for the files or the programs that we qualify for. Now, along the top of the screen, we have the eligible programs, okay, and it's doing a best execution. Let me zoom in a little bit for you here. It's doing a best execution, so across each of these rate options, it's going to choose the investor program that is giving the best price. So we have all our 15-year fixed conforming products here, but within each of these rate options, we can see Provident is actually giving the best price. Then it goes to FAMC, then GMAC, then FAMC, then GMAC is kind of going between each other depending on the rate option. So essentially, it's making the process of selecting best price much easier. You don't have to do the comparison yourself. You can just do it directly from here. Let's see, what else can we do? So we have our eligible programs along the top, and as we scroll down, it's going to show us those ineligible loan programs. It's going to tell us we don't qualify for them, but also why we don't qualify. For example, here, there's some CLTV or LTV requirements that are not met. Obviously this is a refinance rate and term only. Let's see, jumbo loans only, so our loan amount doesn't qualify for that. You might see things related to LTV, sometimes even FICO, depending on, the scores that are in place for the borrowers. Here, for example, this PennyMac program, the minimum loan amount is not met, and the minimum score is 720. In this case, we did not meet that, so it's telling us why we don't qualify. It's really helpful to be able to look at these denial reasons because it helps the loan officer to know why they can't move forward with a particular investor program without having to contact, operations to know why. So this is very helpful, very cool tool. And what it also does, aside from telling them, yep, you can't move forward with that, it also prevents them from moving forward with it. And so the only things that are going to be registered or submitted for a lock request that are even going to get into your pipeline as a processor are those files or programs that they actually qualify for. So instead of you guys spending, as processors, spending time on files that are not going to work out eventually because, they don't qualify for the investor's guidelines, that's going to be eliminated because they're only going to submit for programs that they actually do qualify for. And so some of the things that we have available here, if we click on the preview link here, it allows us to take a look at the loan scenario information. So just to get a quick look at more information about this particular GMAC product, our scenario information here, if we had some originator compensation plans right there, we have our pricing information for this program. Okay, any adjustments that are in place will be available there. And then the underwriting conditions and steps associated with this specific program. So we have some warnings. We have some credit items for those items we had marked as paid off. As we scroll down, we have some PTD conditions and also PTF conditions and some miscellaneous guys. And so this, because this is being generated by the system, when your originators submit for this, you will receive a copy of the certificate if you're on the file already, or at least you'll be able to view it on the condition screen. So let me go ahead and move forward with either registering or submitting this lock request. If I click on register, it's like submitting a float where I can go ahead and rerun pricing later on. Okay, I'm just going to agree to this loan submission agreement here. Notice it will tell me I'm going to send this email or the certificate over to these guys. So Mike, you'll be receiving an email in a bit. Click on confirm, and a copy of the certificate that's going to be generated will be sent out to the loan officer and other operations staff that's currently on the file. Okay, and so it's just telling us that you registered. This is pre-qualified. No pricing information. They didn't, submit a request or anything like that. So, and then the conditions. Now, as processors, you will be able to view the conditions on the file by going to the underwriting folder and clicking on the conditions link. Okay, and so here you'll be able to see, what are those PTD items that I need to take care of, what are those PTF items I need to take care of, documents, W-2s, pay stubs, whatever it is. Find out here, okay, and then you can go ahead into eDocs and upload those conditions into the loan file. And once again, it's all in one system. Anyone that has access to this file will be able to see your conditions. They don't have to log in multiple places. It's all in just one spot. Okay. Any other questions, anyone, for what we've covered today so far? We're almost coming up towards the end of our time together. So while you're putting your questions together, I'm going to go ahead and show you some more information that you have in terms of contacting our support team. So along the upper right corner of the screen, there is an instant support link, okay, which you'll be able to go ahead and contact our support team from 6:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And you can type out, whatever your question is. Hi, what time is it, for example, and send that over, and they'll be able to chat back and forth with you. If you didn't want to do a chat, you can also send us an email by clicking the feedback question link along the top here, and that allows you to go ahead and email us. So, for example, if you had a question maybe outside of business hours, or it's not really urgent, you just want to fire it off and not chat with us, go ahead and send us an email instead. So you have that option as well. And then you have the help link here, which allows you to pull up the help center where you can go ahead and view, different user guides. I believe the administrators will be providing you with some training materials as well. You have the update history. Historically, we update the system, at least once a month, sometimes two. Maybe for some bigger projects, it might take a little bit longer than a month. But this update history area here allows you to see the newest changes to the file, e-signature areas and other stuff that, you might say, hey, I want to use that. Go ahead and let your administrators know. Maybe that's something that we can make available for you, when you guys are ready. Tutorials, like we saw earlier, our DU video, if you want to take a look at that. Quick reference, frequently asked questions, and then some troubleshooting information in case you come up with some, errors or issues that you're running across, and you want to look at this before contacting our support team. So whatever avenue or method you want to use, go ahead, and you're more than welcome to use all of that information. Okay, I do have some questions here. Let's see. How do we order appraisals and other third-party services? So aside from credit reports themselves and then DO and DU, you would need to enter or order those third-party services outside of the system. Michael or Adam, do you have any other direction or guidance you want to make for those third-party services, appraisal, flood, things like that?
Appraisal ordering thing just sent to the desk.
Hey guys, this is Adam. A couple things on the ordering appraisal. At the moment, they'll just like they would in Point, fill out the order form here for an appraisal, send it over to the appraisal desk, and we take it from there. We are working on transitioning to StreetLinks, which will make it a lot easier on us. But at the moment, we're just going to do it as we are currently. Instead of going into Point and filling out that order form, you would do it in lender's office.
Go over it to show the Lester. Why don't you show over a appraisal order form?
Now, are you using our request for appraisal, or do you have a custom PDF for that?
Yeah, the request for appraisal.
Okay. So here, just on the bottom here, we have this request forms folder, and then you have some different areas to fill out those request forms. And then you can go ahead and print this out or save it as a PDF to email it out, whatever you need to do. One thing that's neat I do want to show you here is that for each of these different companies or third-party services that you want to add onto the file, you can just type the information here, but I do recommend putting it onto the official contact screen. So if I go here to the agents area again, and I can click on this Add People button. Okay, and if I wanted to add an appraiser to this loan file, I can go ahead and click on, whatever it is, appraiser or a home inspection, flood provider, the listing agent, whoever it is. And if it's already in your contact database, you can click on this Pick from Contacts link here, and it's going to show you the list of all the appraisers that are in your database. Okay, so that's one thing that you'll have in mind, to keep in mind. You can go ahead and select, those appraisers that are on the file, or those other listing agents or whoever it is.
Hey Lester, just real quick, that's a great function. The thing is, the way we're doing our appraisal ordering, it's kind of it's off a random panel, so the processors actually would not put in the appraiser. We would take care of that here at the appraisal desk.
Okay, okay. So for any other contacts, just in general, then you do have the ability.
Title,
right. So instead, title, like you mentioned, go ahead and pick them from the list here. And because you put them here in the contact list, it's going to populate all the other forms and disclosures that require the title information. So, like on our appraisal sheet here, if I scroll down, we have areas for our escrow and our title, and this all came from that official contact list, selling agent information. Okay? So great question there. Let's see, what else do we have? Are we going to receive PDF conditions from underwriters like before? That's a question from Deborah.
Yeah, well, actually we have, the approval will come in a PDF format. We can email it, Lester, as you know, directly from the system, I guess. And it'll look similar to that preview sheet that we had earlier with, the condition list and all of that. And in addition, they can also just log on, as you've mentioned, and check the conditions to see what they are and also where they are as far as being signed off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another feature of the system that your people, the agents, can and cannot, if any status changes on a loan, they can be electronically notified as well. And that's just kind of a user preference if they want, because anytime the loan changes, they will get notified. Sometimes it's annoying, and sometimes people like it. It really depends on their volume. If you have a loan officer that does 30 loans a month, they probably don't want to get an email on every single change of that loan, and they've got a different management style. But if a guy that does one loan a month, that may be very important to him.
Okay. And so you might receive something that looks like this, this approval certificate. Okay. And so as we're going down the list here, just information on the file, but also it has on the bottom all of your conditions grouped according to those categories that are on the file. Okay, they're numbered and everything, and this is matched exactly as would appear on the condition screen. Okay, so all these conditions that are here, same thing that will be issued to you on the approval cert. Okay. I should also note that if once this has been issued to you via email or sent to you by the underwriters, if we go to the print screen here, that approval certificate that was sent to you will also be available at the very, very top here. So it says approval certificate. If I click on preview, I can also pull up that exact same approval or the most recently issued approval on the file. Okay, question from Amanda, is the point contact database going to be populated to lender's office? Do you know if you've already transferred that information or going to be?
You know what? That's a great question. My guess is Stephen been kind of in charge of maintaining that database up to this point?
Yeah, if we can, let's do it.
Yeah, if it's possible, we're totally for that. We'll talk about that with you, Lester, after this.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. You know, a lot of people do that, so no
Great.
problem. Let's see. Does Lender's Office interface with Data Verify in order to run the drive report? Question from Amanda.
Okay. At the moment, it does not. I believe we were talking to them about doing something of that nature, but we would still export the 3.2, I guess, which is the way we do it now, and upload that to the website to run the report.
Yeah, to run the drive report, we would have to go through, export a Fannie Mae 3.2 file from Lender's Office, and then import that file directly into Data Verify. Hopefully, we're hoping to have an integration built.
And let's take a look at how you can export out that Fannie Mae 3.2. Along the top here, we have the file folder. If you click on the export folder, there's a link for to Fannie Mae. Okay, and so that option there will bring you to the Fannie Mae addendum. If everything looks good, and, go ahead and click on the next button, and then you'll be able to download this file onto your computer, and then use that to upload into Data Verify, or for anything else that you need a Fannie Mae 3.2 for. All right. Any other questions? We are at our 10:30 time of ending the meeting, so I do appreciate all your time. I'll still stick around for any questions if you do have any. But as far as the main things we wanted to cover today, just to get you a little bit familiar, a little exposure to the system, I think we were able to cover it. Michael or Adam, did you have anything else you wanted to take a look at or add before we close? And once again, I'll still hang out for some questions for a few minutes.